Don't work like that, soldier boy.
On the shores of California, an old man recounts the story of Bobby Z, a former marijuana dealer and trafficker whose name once carried weight in the criminal underworld. Meanwhile, inside a prison, a man named Tim Kearney is serving time for multiple crimes. Life in prison is brutal, and Tim finds himself constantly harassed by a notorious gangster named Mad Dog, who has a vast network of men working for him. Mad Dog takes pleasure in bullying Tim, asserting his dominance over him every chance he gets. Frustrated and unwilling to endure the abuse any longer, Tim takes matters into his own hands. One day, he grabs a sharpened license plate and slashes Maddox's throat, ending his reign of terror within the prison walls. This act doesn't go unnoticed. Prison officials now keep a close eye on Tim, recognizing him as a dangerous figure for eliminating a major gangster. However, Maddox's allies won't let this slide, and Tim quickly realizes that staying in prison means facing certain death. Desperate for a way out, he seeks help from federal agent Tad Gruzza. Tad, known for pulling strings to get people out of prison, presents Tim with an intriguing yet dangerous proposition. He tells Tim that he must assume the identity of Bobby Z, the legendary drug lord, in order to secure his freedom. Tad warns him that Maddox's men will come for him sooner or later, making prison an unsafe place to remain. As Tim ponders his options, the story shifts to the open ocean, where federal agent Moreno is being held captive by Don Ordero, a powerful crime lord. Tad, looking to negotiate Moreno's release, makes an offer: he will hand over Bobby Z in exchange for the agent. However, there's a catch: the real Bobby Z is already dead. Since Don doesn't know this, Tad needs someone who looks like him, and Tim happens to be the perfect candidate. After much contemplation, Tim agrees to the deal. He undergoes an extensive makeover to enhance his resemblance to Bobby Z. In addition to altering his appearance, he is also given crucial information about Bobby Z's life, including details about two women, Elizabeth and Olivia, who were close to him. Tad stresses the importance of recognizing these women, as they could be vital in maintaining his cover. Once everything is set, Tim is escorted to the border for the prisoner exchange. He is introduced to Monk, an old friend of Bobby Z, who is supposed to help him establish credibility. However, things take an unexpected turn when Tim realizes that Tad has no intention of keeping his word. Tad's true plan is to have Tim killed during the exchange, using his death to secure Moreno's release. As the exchange begins, a gunfight erupts between Tad's team and Don's men. Tim narrowly avoids a bullet meant for him, which instead hits one of Don's men. Amid the chaos, Tim manages to slip away and hide in the nearby bushes. Unfortunately, Don's men quickly locate him and take him into custody. To his surprise, rather than being treated as a prisoner, Tim is welcomed warmly into Don's luxurious estate. He is given a comfortable room, fine treatment, and even invited to a poolside party. At the party, he spots Elizabeth, one of the women linked to Bobby Z. As Tim settles in, a man suddenly approaches him, stating that Brian, Don's right-hand man, wants to see him immediately. Brian informs Tim that Don is too busy to meet him at the moment, so he will have to wait. Later that night, Elizabeth visits Tim in his room and shares a shocking revelation: the young boy she was with earlier, Kit, is actually Bobby Z's son. During their conversation, Elizabeth also warns Tim that Don intends to kill Bobby Z after the exchange is completed. However, she does not explain why Don wants him dead. Realizing he is on borrowed time, Tim begins plotting his escape. Just as he prepares to leave, Kit catches him in the act and pleads to come along. Despite knowing that bringing a child will slow him down, Tim can't bring himself to abandon the boy. Together, they steal a horse and ride off into the night. Their escape does not go unnoticed. Brian quickly learns of their departure and sends his men after them. As the chase intensifies, Tim realizes that Kit is more of a liability than an asset. In a strategic move, he hides Kit in the bushes and instructs him to stay put while he handles their pursuers. Using his military training, Tim takes down the men one by one before retrieving Kit and continuing their escape. Switching to a stolen motorcycle, they speed through a deserted road, only for the bike to run out of gas. Forced to continue on foot, they push forward. Meanwhile, at Don's estate, Elizabeth suffers a brutal beating at Brian's hands as punishment for helping Tim. Determined to capture Tim, Don sends his best enforcer, Johnson, to track him down. Armed horsemen approach Tim and Kit's hiding spot, triggering yet another intense battle. Tim fights fiercely, managing to eliminate most of the attackers, but is eventually shot in the leg. At the same time, Don confronts Brian for letting Bobby Z escape. When Brian explains that Elizabeth had warned him, Don decides he no longer has use for him and orders his execution. The next day, Tad discovers Brian's lifeless body and realizes Tim has once again slipped through their grasp. He calls Boom Boom, informing him that Tim is heading toward Mexico and must be stopped. Tim and Kit reach a small motel, where Tim buys a car and supplies. He contacts Monk, pretending to be Bobby Z, and arranges a meeting. However, Johnson and Boom Boom track them to the motel. Sensing danger, Tim avoids a trap that kills Johnson in an explosion. When Boom Boom ambushes them, Tim manages to overpower him and steal his motorcycle. Monk, believing Bobby Z is returning, throws a party in his honor. When Tim arrives, Elizabeth confesses that she knew all along that he wasn't Bobby Z. She also reveals that Monk has agreed to help Tim escape. But before they can leave, Don arrives and takes Kit hostage. Don finally reveals his motive for wanting Bobby Z dead. Years ago, Bobby Z and Monk deceived him, costing him a great fortune. Worse, Olivia, Don's daughter, took her own life after being abandoned by Bobby Z. Enraged, Don threatens to kill Kit unless Tim surrenders. In a desperate moment, Kit delivers a swift kick to Don, creating just enough distraction for Tim and Elizabeth to break free. Meanwhile, Tad visits Bobby Z's former home and uncovers the shocking truth: the real Bobby Z is alive. The entire plan had been orchestrated to stage Bobby Z's death, but Tim's survival has disrupted everything. After eliminating Don and his men, Tim, Elizabeth, and Kit make their way to the port, where Monk waits with a passport and money. Just when they think they are free, Boom Boom and Maddox's crew ambush them. In a bold move, Tim claims that he is the real Bobby Z, casting doubt on the situation. Kit calls Tim Dad, solidifying the deception. The confusion leads to chaos, with Maddox's men and Boom Boom turning against Tad and the real Bobby Z, ultimately killing them. Finally free from their pursuers, Tim, Elizabeth, and Kit leave together, heading toward a new life.